How's it going? I'm Chris, and today we're going to be looking at Speak Now by Taylor Swift. I'm making this video because a student recently started with me, and she brought this song in as one that she was working on, and it turns out she made a great choice. There's some really key foundational things that you can work on in this song if you're still kind of an early, beginner guitar player. We're mostly going to be focusing on switching between some really common open chords, doing some fairly common strumming patterns that show up in tons of different tunes, and the mute strum technique, which can be a little bit tricky for people still early on in playing guitar. So first we'll go over the chords you're going to need for the song, and then we'll zoom in on the fretboard and actually break down the different sections. So our first chord that we're going to need is the open G major chord. So the way we're going to fret this, because there's a couple different ways, we're going with the classic one. So this is going to be second finger on the third fret of low E, first finger on the second fret of A, open D, G, and B, and then your third finger on the third fret of the first string, high E. Next, we're going to go to the open D major chord. That's open D string, first finger on the second fret of G, third finger on the third fret of B, and then your second finger on the second fret of the first string. All right, then we have A minor next. That's open A, second finger, second fret on the D string, third finger, second fret on the G string, first finger, first fret on the B string, and then open high E. Then we have the C chord. That's almost exactly the same as A minor. The only thing that's different is our third finger is going to be moving from the G string to the third fret of the A string, leaving the G open. So that's third finger, third fret on the A string, second finger, second fret on the D string, open G, first finger on the first fret of the B, and then your open high E string. Now the song mostly is just those four chords, in that order too. However, there's one extra chord that only shows up one time in the bridge, and that is E minor. So technically this is a 5-chord song. So to make the E minor, we have open low E, second finger, second fret on the A, third finger, second fret on the D, and then open G, B, and high E. And those are all the chords you're going to need. The verse is largely defined by a mute strum pattern that's going to carry on through that whole section as well as the pre-chorus. There's technically like 2 different ways you could go about doing it. I'm going to be focusing in on the by the book sort of approach because that will help your strumming skills and your techniques, because we're going to be following the rules of strumming. Or I should say rule, because there's really just one, and that is the strumming hand keeps moving down, up, constantly, no matter what the strumming pattern is. So if we divide our measure into 4 downbeats, that would be our down strums. 1, 2, 3, 4. If we add our upbeats in between those, we would count those as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And so them being upbeats would be up strums. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. If this is new for you at all, that's where you start. It's just getting used to that constant down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And you can practice that on muted strings like I'm doing, or if you wanted to just get some extra practice on any chord that you might be working on, you can just hold that chord down there and just keep going through that. Now our strumming pattern that we're going to do here fits into that. I think of it as a grid, a strumming grid that we're going to be doing. So here's what's going on. On downbeat of 1, we are strumming down on a G chord. Then our mute strum happens. All right, so what's going on for this is actually really no muting in my fret hand. All the muting is happening with my strumming hand right here. I am letting the side of my strumming hand here hit the strings at the exact same time that I'm doing a strum. So there's a little bit of kind of thumb stuff happening here, a little bit independent of the rest of the hand. But the key to this here is getting that side of the hand to hit the strings at the exact time that your pick is hitting it, because you want that muted. You can see how I'm not doing any fret hand muting over here. I'm not touching the strings, and they're not ringing out. That's because all the muting is happening right here. So I'll show you a picture. Hopefully I'll be able to put it over the top here if I can figure things out, just so you can see a player perspective of that. That can take a little bit to get used to, right? As with anything, go really slowly, try to stay as relaxed as you can, and just try to work on this kind of chop kind of thing. You'll know you have it when you can do what I'm doing right here, which is not doing any kind of fret hand muting, and the strings aren't ringing out. So that's what's happening on the downbeat of 2. I'm going 1 and 2. Now, I'm going to pop back up on the very next upbeat, still on that G chord. So now I have 1 and 2 and. All right, the next time I'm going to hit the strings is going to be another muted strum on the downbeat of 4. So now my full measure is going to be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. The intro of the song before the verse officially starts is just 2 bars of G. You're just going. So that's where you want to start your practicing on that form. Don't worry about the chord switching yet. Focus on just getting the strumming thing down. If that's taking a long time and you want to get on with the song and actually be playing some music, it's absolutely fine just to ignore the mute strums and just hit where you need to on the G chord. So that would be the downbeat of 1 and then that and of 2. So it'd be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That's great strumming practice right there. You're hitting a down strum, an up strum, totally fine. Don't let that mute strum hold you back from going through the rest of the song. That'll just be frustrating, and that's not what we want to do. So the chord sequence, like I had demonstrated with showing you the chords earlier, is just G, D, A minor, and then C. And each one of them gets 1 bar. So goes again. Now that last C chord, I just held it for 4 beats there because it kind of has a false ending to the verse in the middle of it, and then we keep going through the rest of it. We have 2 more passes through that progression of the verse, and then we are on to the pre-chorus. The pre-chorus has the exact same strum pattern as the verse, but the chord progression changes. Still the same 4 chords, just in a different order. Now we're going to start with A minor, C, G, and then D. That's going to go again, kind of. Now I'm going to skip G, go straight to D. Again, we changed something up in the last measure of the phrase. This is the last bar before the chorus starts, so she does another measure of D, but just hits 1 down strum and then mute it. So it's just 1 beat on a D chord. So here's the pre-chorus, uninterrupted by me. The chorus is where we finally switch up our strumming pattern and we go to probably the most common strumming pattern that you're going to find in your guitar playing. We are getting rid of the muted strum, so that might be great news for you if you hate doing that at first. And we're going to the down, down, up, down strumming pattern. So if we're talking about what beats that hits on, you're going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. You can also do that last up strum, that strum on the and of 4. That's totally fine. But again, this is geared towards someone who might be just starting out with their strumming. And so this is 1 less strum, just a little bit less of a hassle. They don't really sound too much different, really, when you play them back to back. And luckily for us, the chord sequence is exactly the same as the verse. So we're playing G, D, A minor, C. I'm seeing a pattern here because, again, we are holding that last C chord of the first chorus out for a whole bar, kind of like how we did back in the verse. Quick note about the chord changes. We are not doing a strum on the and of 4. We are going to switch our chords then. Now, you never actually want to be switching to the next chord on the downbeat of 1. That's when the chord is supposed to be happening. That's just too fast. So we want to keep our strumming on the grid of rhythm here. So we're going to, on purpose, aim to do the switch on that and of 4. So if you watch and I do it really slowly, I'll go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So I'm making a conscious decision to get the fingers moving on that and a 4. So I'm not trying to do it too fast and out of rhythm, because you'll be able to hear that. It's going to sound a little bit too tense or, more stressed out. We want to stay as relaxed as we can in rhythm. The next new section of the song is going to be the bridge after the second chorus. This is where we finally get to play that E minor chord for the one time it happens. So, and we're not strumming for the first 4 bars here. We're doing whole notes. So we start on that E minor chord, hold it for 4, we go to C, hold that for 4, G for 4 beats, and then D for 4 beats. Then we're going to kick back into our chorus strumming pattern on an A minor chord, C, D, D. Then we have another kind of pre-chorus-ish part. This is where the structure of the song kind of changes pretty quickly, because now we're into kind of a half pre-chorus. So we're back to our original strumming pattern with the mute strums. Sorry. And we start on A minor like the pre-chorus normally does. D, another held D chord. And then we're into a verse, a really quiet verse. Drums start to build up around here somewhere. Then we have one little variation here that we got to pay attention to. The guitars follow in that last measure of build up into the last chorus. Now this is technically a rule break because I've abandoned my whole down up thing that I was so passionate about earlier. Because we're building up, we want some more intensity, so we're going to do all down strums here. The counting of this, it's on a C chord by the way, the counting is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So I'll do that again a little bit slower. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. You saw I brought my strumming hand up to mute the strings in between those last 2 strums because they're kind of staccato hits, so they're short and clipped. Everybody's hitting those together. You can start, if that's new for you again, you can start without it. Totally cool, but you see it has a little bit more impact when I actually do the mutes in between. And like anything else, I'm trying to keep that in rhythm, so I'm consciously doing that on those upbeats in between them. We have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That'll keep everything in time. And then you just have a chorus where we're repeating those 4 chords, G, D, A minor, and C, 4 times in a row. The song ends with just one last strum on the G chord. And that's it.